Since the first reported case of COVID a little more than a year ago, the pandemic has taken a devastating toll in the U.S., far worse than in many other developed countries. The numbers are almost too large to fully comprehend. More than 3,800 deaths recorded just yesterday on one day, an average of 2,300 plus deaths a day over the past week, and a cumulative death toll larger than the population of cities like Pittsburgh, St. Louis, or Lexington, Kentucky. All while the country is averaging more than 183,000 new cases a day recently. We close the year with some perspective from Donald McNeil, who has been covering this pandemic for the New York Times. And Donald McNeil, welcome back to the NewsHour. We did want to speak with you because you have been looking at this terrible pandemic for the entire year. As you look back on 2020, how does this pandemic come into focus for you?
Worst year of our national life in my lifetime. I mean, I'm not old enough to remember 1918 Spanish flu or the Depression or World War II, but other than that, I can't imagine a time when this many people have suffered all around the world, all at the same time. Both fear and death, as you would experience in a war, and economic crushing, as you experience in a recession. So it's been just awful.
Donald McNeil, we keep asking this question. The United States has, what, 4% of the world's population, and yet we have almost a quarter of all the cases in the world. How did it come to this?
Leadership failure is the short answer. Donald Trump might have been the hero of this pandemic, and we might have gotten out of it looking pretty great. I don't think we would ever have had the kind of total lockdown and defeat of the pandemic that China managed, because Americans are too ornery to have gone along with those kinds of lockdowns. But had we had a few weeks, even more than Europe did. I mean, we got dinged by the virus in mid-January when it hit Seattle, but we really didn't have a big outbreak in New York until, the virus probably arrived in February at multiple times. And had we picked up the lessons from Italy, which saw that things were out of control and locked down really tightly, had the president and everybody around him taken everything very seriously and said, look, get indoors the way the Italians learned to do, stop travel, adopt masks, as we've done in Europe, and let's be careful, and let's unleash America's industrial and pharmaceutical might and build a vaccine, we would have done it. And we would have, probably on the order of Germany, level of deaths if we'd had that kind of leadership and that kind of determination to take on the virus. But we didn't. We lost it all in denial, and then we didn't have tests for 2 months, so we didn't know where the virus was. We could have avoided lockdowns in many places outside of New York if we'd known where the virus was. And then we were just a headless chicken for an enormous amount of the early days of the pandemic, and we've been playing catch up ever since and not succeeding. And the denialism has continued even to this day. The president launched these great vaccines and hasn't taken one.
And now that we have a vaccine that is beginning to be available, it's not available to as many people as it was thought it would be. We're going into 2021 with fewer people vaccinated than had been forecast. How hard, how easy is it going to be to ramp that up?
We're not getting very clear explanations of what the problem is. I mean, it sounds like Operation Warp Speed is moving the vaccine to the state depots, but then just sort of dropping it off and saying, okay, governors, take it from here, which unfortunately has been the way the federal government has led a lot of things here, even if it's, get your own PPE, find your own ventilators, and now it's here, get your own vaccine out there, and we're not giving you enough money to do it. This was supposed to be the easy phase. I mean, giving vaccines in hospitals and nursing homes ought to be easy. You've got tons of people around who know how to, stick needles in people. But we're already struggling, and I worry quite a bit about what's going to happen once we've got, the massive numbers of people outside of hospitals and nursing homes leading for vaccines. So we don't have a clear idea, but we really need to get to about 1 million vaccines a day in order to hope to reach the goal of vaccinating, 80% of this country by by mid to late next year. And we're nothing close to 1 million a day. We're We're 100,000 or so right now. So it's a real problem.
A lot. Excuse me, a lot of people wonder, with different leadership in Washington, which there will be under President-elect Biden starting in a few weeks, how different will things be? I mean, can decisions be made with regard to testing, with regard to decisions made at the states, with regard to attitudes about taking the virus seriously? How much should Americans expect that things will be different starting on January the 21st?
Well, I'm sure the attitude from the top will be very different. I'm sure, there'll be scientific guidance for things. But when you've got 200,000 new cases a day, if that's still going on by the time Joe Biden comes into office, it's going to be very hard. King Canute couldn't stop the waves, and you can't change cold weather, and you can't stop a virus from spreading unless everybody changes what they do. You can't really declare a federal mask mandate. You can't force people back into the homes federally. It has to be state by state. Those are state laws, and so I'm not sure how much a change in attitude is going to make a difference, and I'm not sure that he will be able to speak to the Trump base, which is where the pandemic has been hitting in this third wave very hard. I mean, the people who denied wearing masks in the Midwest and the Dakotas and places like that are the ones being hit hard in this wave. It's not the same people who are being hit in the first wave that, the cities. So he has to find people who can speak to those groups and convince them that they've got to protect themselves and accept the vaccine. And then he's got to help roll out the vaccine. And hopefully, he can take some money from some budgets. There's always bloated budget somewhere in the federal government, and route that into getting the vaccine into people's arms.
I'm asking you this because I think some people believe that with a change in leadership, we're going to begin to see some dramatic or at least noticeable changes. But it looks like, I mean, with hospitals overflowing in California and other states, more people than ever in ICUs, I mean, we're still in for some rough times ahead, aren't we?
Absolutely. It's quite, unless people get scared. There are some hints. You can see, looking at the maps today, that cases are dropping in places like the Dakotas and Minnesota and around the upper Midwest. I think they got very scared by what happened around Thanksgiving and how their hospitals got filled. And if that fear causes people to, protect themselves better, then we'll do better. But got to see if that happens, and got to see how Mr. Trump handles it when he's out of office. If he's mocking the efforts to stop it, it may thwart, the new administration's efforts to do things better.
Finally, Donald McNeil, if there's one thing, I know it's impossible to boil this down to one thing, but if there's one thing that people should be thinking about as we close out this year and go into the new one about this pandemic, what do you think it would be? Get
the vaccine and protect yourself until you do. My daughter, who works at a hospital in Los Angeles, got the vaccine yesterday. I'm thrilled. It'll be quite a while before I do, but I'm very happy for her, and hope that everybody else gets the same thing soon and that they protect themselves until then. And let's hope next year is better than this one.
For sure. And in the meantime, as you say, everybody stay as safe as we possibly can. Wear masks, keep socially distanced. Don't gather tonight on New Year's Eve. Donald McNeil with the New York Times, we thank you very much. And we
thank you for inviting
wish
me.
you and all of us the best. Thank you.
Happy New Year.